Streaming live. The leader in Internet talk radio. VoiceAmerica.com.
Welcome to Crime Prevention 101 with host Susan Bartelstone. We're so happy you've joined us this weekend. Over the next hour, you'll learn the tips, tricks, and vital information that'll help you keep yourself confident and safe. Now, here's the host of Crime Prevention 101, Susan Bartelstone.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Crime Prevention 101. The personal safety radio show with the optimistic perspective on a sober subject. And I'm your host, Susan Bartelstone, right here in ever-exciting New York City, which I often refer to as the scene of the crime, if you know what I mean. And as always, it is my honor and privilege and pleasure to be here with you once again and spend the next hour with you helping you keep yourself safe. Now, over the many, many years that I've been teaching and working in the crime prevention field, I've heard so many stories from crime survivors, and I've seen too many tears and way too much pain. So today's show strikes at one of the core tenets of what I consider my mission for doing this radio show, and that is to answer the question, how can you heal if you've been traumatized or assaulted? Now, we all know about the traditional means that are offered to us, psychotherapy of some form, medication, maybe a combination of both. But I want to expand your knowledge about the non-traditional healing options that are available, the non-traditional options that address the trauma of sexual violence and the debilitating symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, which we call PTSD. And I've done many shows on this topic, and today's show is going to be another show in that vein. I'm going to be talking about the emotional freedom techniques. It's also known as EFT or tapping. And EFT really is an innovative technique. It's most closely analogous to the ancient Chinese meridian healing systems, except that it's designed to aid in the relief of both physical pain and deep emotional trauma. So even though it hasn't been fully researched by Western academia, medical, psychological communities, and so forth, it appears to have many promising benefits. And there's an impressive amount of anecdotal evidence from thousands of people, including children, who've experienced relief using this method. So coming up on the show today, you're going to meet EFT Master Practitioner Sophia Cayer, and we'll be talking about this healing tool. And also coming up, we're going to hear from one of Sophia's clients whose entire family has been helped by EFT. And make sure that you stay tuned for some of the proven tips that I've got for you from survivors, for survivors that also help you heal. Now, today's show is a particularly important one for people who are crime survivors or who know someone who's a crime survivor. So please, if you know someone who might benefit from a show like this, send out a text message about us. I am about us. Tweet. If you're on Twitter, tweet out there. Anything so that people can come and join us on the show. So without further ado, I want to introduce my guest to you. Her name is Sophia Cayer, and she has been an EFT coach and teacher for more than 8 years. And she is also one of only 29 people in the world who has attained the designation EFT Master Practitioner. She has more than 15 years' experience helping people resolve issues and achieve personal goals. She's also been a Reiki master and an ordained minister with the Universal Church of Life. In 2007, she published her first book, EFT Language, Creating It and Going with the Flow. And she's worked as a volunteer for many worthy causes. Most recently, she was involved with Hurricane Katrina survivors, using EFT with them, and we're going to talk more about that, hopefully. So, Sophia, welcome to Crime Prevention 101.
Thank you, Susan. I appreciate you having me here.
What a pleasure. Now, Sophia, this healing tool is a little controversial from the standpoint that there just isn't a lot of supporting studies as to its effectiveness. But, I went to some of the websites, and there seems to be such an impressive amount of anecdotal evidence from people who found relief with this technique. Just explain exactly what EFT is, Emotional Freedom Techniques, and how did it come about?
I'd like to throw one comment out there, Susan, as far as the research goes. There is a great deal of research that is taking place. In fact, I'm involved in one of the research projects right now with Dawson Church, who is out in California, and those things are happening. So while the scientific research is minimal, it's still taking place, and there have been literally hundreds of thousands of people that have benefited from the use of this technique. As you said earlier, it is based on the meridian system, and it has been used to relieve stress and pain. But what we do, instead of working with needles, is utilize our fingertips to stimulate specific points on our face and bodies. And when it's properly applied, the process has the ability to restore the balance to the energy system, neutralizing all those emotional disruptions that are generated by the traumas and various life experiences that we all go through. And what happens then is that it allows the body's and mind's natural healing abilities to function much more optimally.
Now, how does EFT differ from other types of energy work or therapy?
Well, it varies in the fact that it tends to be a more lasered approach because you are going to the very specific issues and aspects. Or let's say, as an example, the issue is the event, and that event itself might have 100 aspects. And you're going to deal with, and that being the sights, the sounds, all of those various things that could have taken place, in addition to the emotions that you're still hauling around. And so we kind of couple those things together. And as we tune in with those individual aspects and tap through them using a setup phrase and then working through the sequence, all that trauma goes away, and it tends to happen very rapidly, much more rapidly than and more powerfully than any technique I'm aware of. And the effects tend to be, if not permanent, long-lasting. And if it's not a permanent effect, what comes up is that there were simply aspects that had not been addressed previously or new pieces of the puzzle that surfaced.
And Sophia, I was, again, like I did my research on this, and I was reading that some things people were just saying that they were healed after one session. I just found that totally amazing.
It's pretty mind-boggling for a lot of people, and as many years as I've been doing it, there are many times when I'm still astonished at how rapidly someone can let go of something they've been carrying around. I had one woman as an example who had TMJ for 46 years, who let go of it in one 90-minute session. And she called me back with a problem, though, 2 days later, and the new problem was she didn't know what to do with her jaw.
I'm telling you, I just want to, again, it's amazing what the stories that I read. And now, in addition to treating post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, some of the medical conditions that it's been used for: epilepsy, knee pain, Alzheimer's disease, snoring, multiple sclerosis, carpal tunnel, as well as grief and anger and trauma. And in fact, the book that I bought is called "Try It on Everything." Right? Try it on everything. Now, of course, we're focusing on its use for people who are trying to heal from trauma, sexual assaults, and so forth. But I really urge people to look into this as in terms of some of the physical things that people have experienced relief from. And yeah, that's just amazing. One of the stories, this woman had multiple operations. She was on painkillers for many years, and after one session or so, she was pretty much free of it.
Yes, well,
Amazing.
you may or may not be aware of the story, but I had a gentleman who had been on disability for more than 20 years who went back to work and threw away a wheelchair.
Yes. I think I did see a number of stories like that. That's amazing. Just amazing. All right. Let's describe for the audience, my audience, what happens during a typical session, if there's such thing as a typical session.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because there's really not such a thing as a typical session. I think that maybe, Susan, let me just back up for a second here.
Sure.
There isn't anything as a typical session, because to me each situation is absolutely as unique as we are individuals, and that is exactly how I approach things. And I think it's also interesting and important for people to know that this work can be done over the phone. You don't have to find somebody in your neighborhood to work with you.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. Good.
Yeah, there's each little piece of this, which is why it's so important for people who have had these experiences, is approached individually so that they're not re-traumatized by recanting the story. They don't have to recant the story. And so the first thing I always attempt to address is the very fact that, considering that possibility, there tends to be a great deal of anxiety, because after you've had that kind of an experience, who wants to tell the story?
Over and over. And that's what happens with the more traditional kinds of therapy, methodology. Sophia, let's take a pause right here. We'll be right back with more Crime Prevention 101 after this short break. My fantastic guest today is going to give us all the ins and outs about tapping, this amazing tool for healing. So fasten your seatbelts. Don't touch that mouse.
Opinion.
Can you hear me?
Your voice counts. Call toll free 1-866-472-5787. 1-866-472-5787. VoiceAmerica.com. After more than 17 years' experience teaching safety skills to thousands of women and men, crime prevention and personal safety expert Susan Bartelstone concluded that by thinking and responding quickly, ideally within 20 seconds, potentially violent criminal encounters can be prevented. Using techniques from many different disciplines and illustrated by 60 real-life examples and success stories, Susan shows how it's done in her new book, Think Fast and Prevent a Violent Crime: How to Respond to Danger in 20 Seconds or Less. Check out www.fightsafe.com for more information. You'll also find information there on Susan's upcoming Crime Prevention 101 personal safety teleseminars. Think fast, talk fast, fight smart, which stress the many opportunities you have to deter or defuse a criminal encounter, and how to use your brains instead of your muscles in a fight. Look for the new book information or sign up for Susan Bartelstone's personal safety seminars at www.fightsafe.com today.
Hi, my name is Aaron, and I'm a survivor of mannequinism. Mannequinism is basically when you turn into a hard plastic shell. They say it's from not being politically active. For me, it started when I didn't register to vote. And then I stopped volunteering, and before I knew it, I wasn't doing anything. And that's when I found a small patch of plastic on my right shoulder.
Protect yourself from mannequinism. Log on to fightmannequinism.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
The Interstate Sportsman Talk radio show brings two well-known outdoorsmen to the Voice America Network with hunting and fishing info news, talking about everything from new sporting gear, places to hunt and fish, and getting more from your recreation time. Join hosts Brock Ray and Don Kirk Friday mornings at 6 a.m. Pacific Time, 9 Eastern, for the Interstate Sportsman on the Voice America channel.
Streaming live. The leader in Internet talk radio. VoiceAmerica.com.
You're listening to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartelstone. We invite you to share your stories, tips, or suggestions for topics you'd like us to cover, and Susan will address some of these on future shows. Send your story or idea to solutions@fightsafe.com. That email address again is solutions@fightsafe.com. Now back to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartelstone.
Welcome back. My guest today is EFT Master Practitioner Sophia Cayer, and you can find out more information about her, and you can even get a daily dose of her inspirational quotes and see what articles she's got, and she's got an ebook, and this is all available from her website, www.sophiacayer.com, and that is spelled SOPHIA C as in Charlie, AYER, SophiaCayer.com. And don't forget to send out a tweet about us if you're on Twitter. There's plenty of show left to tune in for. And I want to take this opportunity to remind you not to forget to check out my Facebook page. I've got lots of crime prevention information there. I'll have some EFT information, other topics that you might find useful. And please be my friend. I love my friends. I also want to take this moment to mention, as I always do on every show, if you are already a survivor of any kind of crime, such as what we might be talking about on the show today or whatever it might be, please understand that nothing that happened to you was your fault. Even if you think that you used bad judgment in a situation and left yourself vulnerable, that is never, never, never an excuse for a crime or for violence. And I also want to stress that there are no wrong or right responses in a crime situation. Don't go back and say, I could have done this. Don't do it to yourself. If you're alive, you responded correctly. Please call yourself a survivor and not a victim, and understand that with the proper professional help, both traditional and non-traditional, you can put what happened into perspective and get on with your life. And talking about that, let's go back. We were talking about a typical session, if there was a typical session, and what you don't have to do in an EFT session. Sophia?
Okay. In a typical session, we're going to first always address that anxiety that may be there about even approaching the topic. Because, as we said, who wants to recant the same thing? But
particularly for sexual assault survivors and crime survivors and so forth, right?
Absolutely. Whether it's domestic violence, it doesn't matter what the trauma is. It could be the trauma of an auto accident. Mm-hmm. But we're going to try to take that edge off. Not try to. We usually do in a matter of moments, take that anxiety away about even considering approaching the situation. And so we're going to work together and eliminate the fears and anxiety about approaching the topic itself, and then very gently, which EFT will allow us to do, approach the various aspects, including the very one that you mentioned a moment ago, and that is that feeling that it's your fault, the feeling of guilt. There are so many aspects that come into play, and each of them can be worked through, and generally the relief comes very quickly. The goal ultimately, obviously, which happens over and over again, is that the disturbing flashbacks, the nightmares, the reactions that you will find yourself having to various sights, sounds, memories, and smells begin to fade away. And many times it can be done without you ever having to tell the story. When we get into telling the story, it's generally to test our work, to see what other aspects are still there and need to be addressed. But when it's properly applied, EFT can help you get there. And it should not be considered a medical treatment. It should be viewed as a complementary thing. As you mentioned, Susan, you always want to make sure you get proper medical help in these situations. But that typical session will just take you through one step at a time, gently, each piece of this. And you can, I'm not to say that there's not going to be tears ever or emotions that are going to come up that you can't contain or that may feel intense to you, because as best as we try to approach it in a gentle manner, sometimes the result of our experience is just so overwhelming that we can't hold that back. But we can rapidly relieve it.
All right. Now, I know that my audience is going to want me to ask this question. Are there any negative side effects to EFT training, EFT therapy, or EFT healing? And can EFT ever cause a client to feel worse, in your experience?
In my experience, what tends to happen is that on occasion, someone may end up feeling worse, but that what tends to happen is it's not because they did EFT. It is simply because new aspects or new information is beginning to surface, and it's an amazing opportunity to deal with the underlying aspects that are generating that trauma, that nervousness, that constant anxiety that most people that have had these experiences deal with. So if they end up feeling worse and they view it as an opportunity, that's the best way to look at it, and it's usually a very short-lived thing. It's not anything to be concerned about. Now, having said that, what I would share with you is that according to Gary Craig, the gentleman who came up with EFT, who created it, there is less than a 1%, how's the best way for me to say that? Less than 1% of the people that he is aware of that have had any sort of abreaction. And abreactions or negative side effects tend to only come up with people who have very severe situations, who should be under the watch constantly of a medical professional or a psychologist. So the negative side effects, to the best of our knowledge to date, just don't exist.
Now, that's an interesting point that you brought up, because you and I, in our conversations prior to doing the show, you mentioned that it's a complementary tool. So would you ever want to combine it with more traditional forms of therapy for post-traumatic stress disorder, let's say, or maybe medication?
Absolutely. And the reason I would say that is that, let's just take talk therapy as an example. Many people feel much more comfortable in talk therapy, and that's just what they're used to. That's what they've been told. That's what they've learned in their life experiences. But more and more counselors and psychologists are beginning to use this technique, and even physicians, by the way, and various mainstream medical people are starting to incorporate it. But EFT allows that talk therapy to basically be power boosted, if you will.
Okay.
And help people overcome things in a much more rapid manner.
So it does have a complementary use, and I think that's amazing. How about with medication? Do you also, because one of the things I'm thinking is it could eliminate the need for most medication anyway.
It has for many people. And what I always caution people about, because people begin to feel better so rapidly that they have this tendency, I'm feeling so good today, I'm not going to take my medication. And what I always tell them is go talk to your doctor and follow their directions as far as coming off of it. But there have been an unbelievable number of people who have been able to either reduce or completely eliminate medications. And
outstanding.
And sometimes that's the very reason people will come to me, is that they have been on meds and they're still having problems and they're still not feeling good, and I don't want to take the meds anymore. I want my life back.
And let's point out too, we're concentrating on its uses for the trauma of sexual assault or trauma, but it's also for physical pain, physical conditions, knee problems, carpal tunnel, so forth. So medically, you're talking about medication, it's not just psychotropic medication, it's regular old pain medications of different types. I think that's a great point to bring out. Now, EFT sounds so obvious. Why wasn't this discovered many decades ago? And about how long has it been around?
Well, it's been around since, let's see, roughly the mid-'90s. Forgive me if I can't remember the date, but it's just taking its time like everything else because there hasn't been that much scientific research done. It hasn't hit with as great an impact as it is rapidly beginning to.
Mm-hmm. So, and how did this come about in the beginning? Who was it that discovered it?
Well, in the very beginning, you have to really go back, Susan, all the way to the people that thousands of years ago discovered and mapped out the body's subtle energy system.
Well, I'm very familiar with that kind of healing.
Right.
Actually, the Chinese meridian healings. I've done that for many years myself. But who took it into the 21st century here, so to speak?
Well, actually, it was Dr. Roger Callahan who created a therapy or a technique known as thought field therapy, and then it was studied. Thought field therapy was studied by a gentleman who was an engineer by the name of Gary Craig, who I know quite well, and he took Dr. Callahan's technique and went from there. Dr. Callahan is the one who first brought it in a substantial way to the eye of the public, and he did so in the face of ridicule and hostility from his colleagues and the community. So Gary picked it up from there and kind of refined it, if you will, and simplified it so that it was more user-friendly and the basics were easier to get down pat, and it could be learned more rapidly and applied much easier.
Sounds fascinating. What's the main website for information about EFT? I know your website is sophiacayer.com, and what's the other main website for this?
For Gary Craig, the creator of EFT, his website is emofree, EMOFREE.com.
Okay. All right, we're coming up to another brief pause. Stay with me, Sophia. And when we come back, we're going to be hearing from one of Sophia's clients who has used EFT to handle the stress of domestic abuse in her marriage. And this is a topic that we're hearing a lot about lately, so stay tuned.
News, opinion,
Can you hear me?
your voice counts. Call toll-free 1-866-472-5787. 1-866-472-5787. VoiceAmerica.com. After more than 17 years' experience teaching safety skills to thousands of women and men, crime prevention and personal safety expert Susan Bartelstone concluded that by thinking and responding quickly, ideally within 20 seconds, potentially violent criminal encounters can be prevented. Using techniques from many different disciplines and illustrated by 60 real-life examples and success stories, Susan shows how it's done in her new book, Think Fast and Prevent a Violent Crime, How to Respond to Danger in 20 Seconds or Less. Check out www.fightsafe.com for more information. You'll also find information there on Susan's upcoming Crime Prevention 101 personal safety teleseminars. Think fast, talk fast, fight smart, which stress the many opportunities you have to deter or defuse a criminal encounter and how to use your brains instead of your muscles in a fight. Look for the new book information or sign up for Susan Bartelstone's personal safety seminars at www.fightsafe.com today.
What's it like?
What's it like?
It's lonely.
It's really lonely.
I miss my brother.
I miss my brother.
I'm surrounded by other people, but it's not the same.
I've got other people around me, but it's not the same.
It's pretty scary, but I don't let it rattle me.
It's pretty scary around here, but I don't let it rattle me.
You always have to watch your back.
There's no one to watch my back.
I spend my whole day worried who's out to get me.
I'm always wondering who's out to get me.
But I can take care of myself.
But I can take care of myself.
No matter what, I'll keep my head up.
No matter what, I'll keep my head up.
It's not like I have a choice.
It's not like I have a choice.
This'll all be over in 5 years, 3 months, and 17 days.
This'll all be over in 5 years, 3 months, and 17 days.
Go to jail for a gun crime and your family serves a sentence with you. Something to think about before committing a gun crime. Gun crimes hit home. This message brought to you by Project Safe Neighborhoods and the Ad Council.
Frankly Speaking About Cancer is a program designed to empower survivors and their caregivers to deal with the social and emotional challenges of cancer. Drawing on resources from wellness communities throughout America and abroad, the show will invite physicians, researchers, nurses, social workers, patients, and caregivers to share their advice on how to live a better life with cancer. Join host Kim Tibaldo, President and CEO of the Wellness Community, Tuesday afternoons at 1 p.m. Pacific Time and 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Health and Wellness Network. The Internet's #1 talk station. #1 talk station. VoiceAmerica.com.
You're listening to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartelstone. We invite you to share your stories, tips, or suggestions for topics you'd like us to cover, and Susan will address some of these on future shows. Send your story or idea to solutions@fightsafe.com. That email address again is solutions@fightsafe.com. Now back to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartelstone.
Welcome back, and if you're just tuning in, I'm talking with EFT Master Practitioner Sophia Cayer, and also joining us this segment is Carol Freitag, who is one of Sophia's clients, and she's going to talk about her experiences with EFT. And I just want to mention, before I go on, I've done several shows about alternative methods of healing that you might want to check out. And all these shows are archived on my brand spanking new website, SusanBartelstone.com. Back in 2008, in September, I talked about eye movement desensitization response. Also in September, I talked about healing through self-defense, which is, of course, a topic very close to my heart since I taught self-defense for many years. In November of 2008, I talked about healing through creativity. And just this past April, I talked about a wonderful website, a forum called Points with Purpose. And that show focused on healing through Internet forums. And these are all complementary methods that you might want to do in addition to looking into EFT techniques. So don't forget to go back to SusanBartelstone.com and check out my past shows. And I also don't want to forget to mention that my new book, Think Fast and Prevent a Violent Crime, is now available, and you can get more information about that at www.20secondresponse.com. Now I want to introduce Carol Freitag to you. She is the wife of a Vietnam veteran who was suffering from very severe post-traumatic stress disorder when he came back from the war. She's also the mother of 9 children. And she and every one of the children were affected by both physical and emotional abuse as the result of her husband's PTSD. And she also had a very tragic loss that she's going to talk about. Carol, welcome to Crime Prevention 101.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. Take a deep breath, relax. We're all friends here. All right, now I understand that you had a number of repeated abuses in your life before you found Sophia. Can you talk a little bit about what was going on for you up to that point?
Well, being married to a Vietnam veteran, of course, is one of the, not just a Vietnam veteran, but any veteran is extremely traumatic for all of us wives that have to live with someone that comes back from the war. Because all of them are very mentally wounded, and they come back as terminators. They don't come back for peace, and it's very hard for them to reintegrate in society. So we don't understand this because nobody explains it to us, and many times, in my case, I thought it was my fault or I did something wrong, that kind of thing. So it was a very difficult marriage because it was very abusive. And I would believe, as many emotionally abused women were, that I would set my husband off, which was a daily thing. And so never understanding the reasons until my husband got some help, of course, with the VA. but by that time, he was so heavily medicated that he really didn't have a personality left, which we were very happy with because we had been so abused that all of us in the family were plotting his death, literally. We wanted him to die. It was that bad. And when he became almost like a vegetable because of all the medicine he was taking, we were pretty glad. And he was on one side of the house, and we were this little group all huddled together on another side. And that's how, when I went to San Francisco and met Sophia, that's how Sophia found us. We barely talked to one another. We couldn't have a conversation. It was amazing. So I just want to tell you that the scenario in our house has shifted so dramatically from then and now that the remembrance of the pain is so faded that it's almost kind of funny to be explaining this without any pain or any remembrance of pain.
I think that is just amazing. And Carol, how long were you suffering with this before you met up with Sophia and with EFT?
Oh, it's been since I was married to my husband, which was 1975. From then on, from the time that I was married to him, it wasn't an easy relationship, and it got progressively worse. And it got so bad that in 1989, with the death of my child, of a baby, at the hands of people that were living in a house that we were trying to help, and they had a severely abused child that jumped on mine, basically, which was really, really traumatic. Yeah, we thought we could help everybody, but we weren't in the position to do so, obviously.
Oh my God! So it was like 20 some odd years before you found EFT. There was 20 years of suffering with this.
And in between that, I was assaulted in my neighborhood, which was a very safe neighborhood. The detectives even said that it was almost impossible that should happen because nothing had ever happened there before. And I was on a stroll. It wasn't even nighttime. It was twilight, actually. And I was severely attacked, where I was pulled by my hair like a cave woman, and I was beaten. And 2 of my ribs were broken. I still can't tie my shoelaces without one of the ribs popping out, and I have to pop it back in. I still have the scars from it, and he cracked my skull open. So that caused me severe migraines, and of course I found out I had traumatic brain injury, which was not a term in the 70s. I found out that was one of the reasons that a lot of my side effects, the shuffling gait, and sometimes not being able to express myself clearly, that type of thing.
And your children were also obviously going to be affected by everything that happened to you, and all the additional things that happened.
Well, my husband and I inspired fear in our children, tremendous anxiety with everything. My husband was afraid that everybody was going to kill us, and that everybody was an enemy. So he kept us almost like it was almost like a military compound. That's how you would say our family life was like. And my anxiety went right along with him, especially after I got attacked. I agreed with everything he said at first because my anxiety was 100% at that time. And the only thing to do is,
Carol, you might want to mention the difference with the children and some of the things they've overcome.
Oh,
and also, how many of the children have worked with you, Sophia, in terms of using the tapping technique?
Well, you're going to laugh, and it's okay. I'm not sure. You get lost in the sea.
7 worked with you, Sophia.
7 worked with me so far? Okay.
Yes.
And what are the ages of the children? Because I think it's important to bring out that this technique works with children. How old were the ages, Carol, of the children that worked with Sophia?
Well, children now they're grown. I have a 39-year-old right now. I'm talking to you from Seattle, from his house, and the ones that Sophia worked with were 26 were the eldest, all the way down to 12.
And Sophia, does it work on very young children as well?
Yeah, I've actually worked with infants, and 3-year-olds tend to pick it up and use it more readily than adults will. An infant isn't capable of tapping themselves, so I'm assuming that you tap for them. Exactly, right? Which is what I do with all of my clients anyway. I have them tapping as I tap because I'm a firm believer in the power of two.
Yes, absolutely. There's some times when my migraines were so bad I couldn't tap. And my husband, who knows how to, will tap for me now. And will tap on my body, and I can't even speak. It hurts so bad. And by that time, it goes away, because I have somebody else do it for me.
That's an important point. So if you have a really young child who's suffering from something and isn't capable of understanding the concept, you can do it for them.
Yes, it's strange, but it works. It actually works.
You can either tap on them specifically, or you can do what's known as surrogate tapping. And I've done this work long distance for somebody in a hospital that was unable to physically tap for themselves, and they can still experience relief.
Really?
Yeah. Well, see, it's so wonderful. You don't need any kind of belief system or faith or whatever, like the faith healers. That's the amazing thing.
And Carol, how is your husband doing today?
My husband is my buddy. He's my friend. We have long conversations. We can actually talk, which only took a week of being in San Francisco with the Emotional Freedom Technique people up there. It was an amazing turnaround, and he has gotten better. It's not just a one-time thing where you get medicine and you're sedated and you're seething underneath all the sedation, which is what was happening to him. Now he's actually gotten a relationship with all his sons. It's an amazing thing. And I can't believe it. Our marriage is back. I mean, I actually have an ally now. He's not my enemy anymore.
That is wonderful. And I'm so happy to hear that you've also gotten relief from the assaults and from the loss of your child, that you use the tapping method to deal with the grief that came with that. It's a very, very poignant testimony, and thank you, Carol, so much for talking about it on Crime Prevention 101. Well,
you're very welcome. And just remember, everybody, this is not a cure-all, but it is definitely a tool to release the burden of our memories that causes pain. It really is, and it works. But remember also that the simplest solutions in life are often overlooked and considered unimportant. And it's very simple to do. It's not expensive. Please try it.
And Sophia, let's ask you this: how can people find an EFT practitioner? And remember, it doesn't have to be in your immediate area. It can be over the phone. How do they find you?
Well, they can find me at sophiacayer.com. They can also, if we have veterans or family members listening in, they can also go to the personalpeacefoundation.org. I'm a co-founder of the Personal Peace Foundation, which is now currently focused on working with veterans, their families, to help them overcome military stresses.
Personalpeacefoundation.org. This is so critical. We're hearing so many stories about people coming back from Iraq and having the same problems. Sophia, Carol, thank you so much for coming on my show today and being my guest and telling my audience about this amazing technique. We'll be right back.
Talk, talk, talk. That's all we do is talk. If you'd like to talk, call us toll-free right now at 1-866-472-5787. 1-866-472-5787.
That's it.
VoiceAmerica.com. After more than 17 years' experience teaching safety skills to thousands of women and men, crime prevention and personal safety expert Susan Bartelstone concluded that by thinking and responding quickly, ideally within 20 seconds, potentially violent criminal encounters can be prevented. Using techniques from many different disciplines and illustrated by 60 real-life examples and success stories, Susan shows how it's done in her new book, Think Fast and Prevent a Violent Crime: How to Respond to Danger in 20 Seconds or Less. Check out www.fightsafe.com FightSafe.com for more information. You'll also find information there on Susan's upcoming Crime Prevention 101 personal safety teleseminars. Think fast, talk fast, fight smart, which stress the many opportunities you have to deter or defuse a criminal encounter and how to use your brains instead of your muscles in a fight. Look for the new book information or sign up for Susan Bartelstone's personal safety seminars at www.fightsafe.com today.
Hey, Dad.
What?
I can't get the ketchup bottle open.
Here, let me try. Here you go.
Thanks.
You don't have to be a hero to be a hero. When you adopt a child from foster care, just being there makes all the difference. To learn more, call 1-888-200-4005. A public service announcement brought to you by Adopt U.S. Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
If you hear a dog barking or an angel singing, then you know that you are listening to Waking Up in America. Heard every Wednesday at 3 Pacific Time, Valerie Kirkard and all of her friends will bring you powerful and humorous discussions that raise thoughts and give you insight on how to live your life to its fullest potential. Adventure is always a must on Waking Up in America with Valerie Kirkard every Wednesday at 3 Pacific.
Stimulating talk.
It gets those synapses in the brain firing really fast.
All the time. The #1 Internet talk station where your opinion counts. VoiceAmerica.com.
You're listening to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartelstone. We invite you to share your stories, tips, or suggestions for topics you'd like us to cover, and Susan will address some of these on future shows. Send your story or idea to solutions@fightsafe.com. That email address again is solutions@fightsafe.com. Now back to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartelstone.
Well, we're back again. And in case you're not sure where you are, you're listening to Crime Prevention 101. And I am your host, Susan Bartelstone. And we've been talking today about using the emotional freedom technique, EFT, or tapping, a non-traditional method of healing from almost everything. But particularly we were focusing on the healing from trauma of sexual assault or violence or any kind of post-traumatic stress disorder. And I want to give the websites out again. My guest was Sophia Cayer. To get some general information on the EFT technique, you can go to emofree.com. If you are a veteran or know a veteran or a veteran's family, or any of the secondary people that are affected by a veteran who's got post-traumatic stress disorder, who may be involved in domestic abuse because of it, personalpeacefoundation.org, nonprofit organization that Sophia Cayer founded, and, of course, her own website, sophiacayer.com. The book that I got that sounds absolutely amazing is called TryItOnEverything.com. You can go to find information about that. And I tell you, I'm going to link on my website, SusanBartelstone.com, in case you missed any of this important show. You can find it there, and you can do a lot of things. I'm going to talk about how you can get the information about this show out to other people. I just want to go over a couple of tips that I've been wanting to do for quite a while. There's a great website called hopeforhealing.org, and these tips they are tips for recovery from other survivors. And these are the kind of tips that you might want just to feel stronger every day and more positive. And again, EFT is a complementary tool. There are going to be many other possible things you might want to use along with it to help you feel stronger every day. So here's something I thought that was pretty good, these tips. Carry a small book of quotes or scriptures in your purse or backpack, and anytime you have a few minutes, like when you're waiting in line at the grocery store or something like that, in a doctor's office, just take a peek in the book. Things that make you feel good, make you smile. Here's another one. Lie on a blanket and watch the clouds float by. and imagine your troubles floating away with them for a few moments. I like that. I do that. Keep a prayer journal. Take a blank book or just a scrap of paper or tap it out on your computer. You use tapping on the computer. I wonder if it will heal computers. Even if it's just phrases, as long as you understand what you've written, that's all you need to do. Don't get caught up in being perfect. Stay caught up in finding you. I may have to tap on that one, boy. I hold myself to a very high standard, so too high, I'm told. Sometimes if you can't take 5 minutes, take 1 minute and use it just to recharge your batteries, even 30 seconds. Close your eyes, deep breathe. Just a little recharging time. Take a walk in your yard or somewhere outside where you can feel grass crunch beneath your feet. So I guess take a walk backwards, barefoot rather, so you can feel that grass in between your feet, and use this moment as a way of connecting with your inner child. I love that. Take a walk in the rain, do something different, listen to a book on tape, watch a sunset or a sunrise. Great tips. Now, I want to take this opportunity. We're coming down to the end of the show, and I want to take this opportunity. I've been mentioning that I've got a brand new website, SusanBartelstone.com, and you know that my show is only half of what you can get from me. There's a lot more that I have that I want to tell you about. First of all, on my website, you can, as you know, listen to, share, or download any of my previous shows right there. So if there's something you missed or something that you really want someone else to hear, like one of my shows on domestic violence or on stalking or on self-defense, you can email that show with just a mouse click. Second, my website has lots of information that I think you're going to find helpful. I've got tons of safety tips. I've got referral resources. I've got information about various topics that I've talked about on air. I'm definitely going to put stuff about EFT on there. Next, I have links to all my previous guests. So you can go right to their websites from my website, and you can find out more information about the topic that they spoke about. So excited about this. On my website, there is a link to my iTunes page. Don't forget that my show is now available on iTunes. You can listen to it on any compatible portable device that you like. And on my website, there is even a page where you can ask me for help with any safety concerns that you might have. And there's also a link to the forum that I now host on womansavers.com. Please check that out. Womansavers.com is an amazing website. Also, and I'm so excited about this, you can sign up to receive my e-newsletter. If you want to get information about upcoming shows or information about my guests or topics, hot topics, important events, dates that you want to take note of, sign up for my newsletter. You're going to get all sorts of good stuff there. And if you sign up as a bonus, you're going to receive a free chapter of my book, Think Fast and Prevent a Violent Crime. Now, you can't beat that. And also on my website, you can send me comments about my show. You can suggest topics for future shows. You can ask me questions about anything you've heard on the air. You can share your stories. And you can also, by the way, just email me solutions@fightsafe.com. And this is how I can show my gratitude that you've been listening to my shows. And this way I can also continue to present topics and resources that will be meaningful to your safety and your quality of life. Well, it's a wrap for today. I can't believe how quickly it goes. So until next week, I encourage you to use the knowledge you got from this show and from other safety sources to live your life fully and safely. And next week, we're going to be talking about a subject that's near and dear to my heart. We're talking about pepper spray, which is a wonderful defensive option. I love it. I use it. It has saved many lives. You're not going to want to miss that. In fact, it would be a crime not to listen So stay tuned and stay safe.
We hope you got some useful information and inspiration this week on Crime Prevention 101. Susan Bartelstone invites you to join us again next Saturday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time and 2 p.m. Eastern Time here on Voice America. Have a great weekend and a safe weekend.